The politics of build, baby, build have always been very, very tough. And when I started researching my book, I couldn't point to a lot of, this was in 2017, I couldn't point to a lot of examples of success, of where not in my backyard forces were overcome. But since then, we have seen a number of communities, both communities and a number of states that have recognized the current situation is not sustainable. And there have been some fascinating political coalitions that have come together around change. Minneapolis was the first major city to address the issue of, they have single-family exclusive zoning in 70% of their land. And they changed that entirely and said, we're going to allow duplexes and triplexes everywhere, and then we're going to allow lots of development near transit and deal with parking issues. And they did it. I interviewed some of the folks there, and I said, what was different? They said the secret sauce was elevating the voices of communities that hadn't been part of the conversation. So when you have a zoning issue, it's frankly people who look exactly like me. It's the people who dominate zoning meetings. If you look at the minutes, it's older white property owners. That's me, and that's ridiculous. That's the dominant voice in 2024. And so that's what Minneapolis, they made sure that everyone was involved. People who hadn't been involved in those sorts of decisions were recruited and made, they were asked, what kind of housing future would you want for the city? They also got the civil rights groups involved because they looked at the zoning maps and the previous redlining maps, and they were, you overlaid the two of them, and they were kind of mirror images. So the redlining, as you know, is the places where the federal government would not ensure support housing and insure mortgages, and it's the other areas, the green areas, that have today the single-family exclusive zoning. So that was the one thing. The other thing I'll mention quickly is at the state level, really interesting coalitions as well, and I'll point to California and Oregon. And Larry Platt and I we're both obsessed with Bobby Kennedy. Senior, not just to be clear. And in 1968, when he ran for president, he brought together working class white people, working class black people, Hispanic communities, and got them to recognize common interests. And that's what happened in California and Oregon. You would not have had statewide zoning reform if it hadn't been for some Republicans who represented white working class communities align with communities of color, representatives who were there in support of communities of color, coming together against very wealthy, exclusive communities, Democrat or Republican, that were in opposition. So I think the point is it can be done with the right set of political coalitions.